bit of luck, her husband would return. Steve had already failed to return once. In 1953, he'd gone off with the wife of his best friend, only to return 6 months later, having fathered a half-brother I've never met. It would only be a matter of time before he left for good. His sole legacy to my older sister Linda and me would be his honky-tonk piano and a love of music that was deeply embedded in our DNA. For now, the piano was out of bounds. He kept the keyboard locked to prevent us from experimenting with it. Linda and I, aged 10 and 7 respectively, would be contemplating the endless, enervating day that lay ahead. Sunday was a day of rituals. For some, this may have included a church service, but ours was not a church-going community. There were many more pubs than churches, and my mother, while a firm believer, never worshipped in the conventional way. Her relationship with God seemed more personal and intimate. When the gas meter required feeding, for instance, and she had managed to unearth a shilling from somewhere, she would lift her face towards the heavens which lay somewhere above our fly-infested ceiling, and her eyes tightly shut, whisper a prayer of thanks. Inside the meter was a wheel that could be seen turning, indicating the speed at which your shilling pieces were being devoured. By around 1:30 on Sundays, that wheel would be spinning like a top, as Lily roasted the meat, overboiled the veg, and baked the bread pudding ahead of the 2 p.m. deadline. The enormous wireless hired from radio rentals would be tuned to the BBC Light programme, as I suspect was almost every other radio in the country. There was no alternative to the BBC in 1957. Commercial radio was years away, and while the names of overseas stations, such as Luxembourg and Hilversum, were optimistically printed onto some tuning dials, getting any reception through the maze of atmospheric noise was difficult. Our radio didn't offer even the remote hope of such exotic alternatives. The radio rentals engineer had installed it high up, its wires running into a brown Bakelite casing fixed to the kitchen door frame at eye level. This provided us with a switch and 3 numbers. The choice was 1 for the Light programme, 2 for the Home Service, which broadcast mainly news and current affairs, and 3 for the classical music offered by the 3rd programme. At that particular time, on a Sunday, most of the nation was tuned to 2-way family favourites on the Light programme. There were 4 or 5 families in every house in Southam Street, some packed into single rooms, others like us, progressing to 2 or 3 rooms split between landings. From every radio came the same opening theme tune, the lush strings of the André Costellanet's orchestra playing With a Song in My Heart. It seeped out of every cracked window and from under every misaligned door. As the men returned from the pub at closing time, the mean air of Kensal Town would be scented with the smell of roasting meat. Steve rarely returned with a song in his heart, and when he did, it soon gave way to the beer in his belly. He would become morose and occasionally violent. For my mother, those 2 hours on a Sunday lunchtime, listening to family favourites, provided a serene interlude. The programme, like its forerunner, Forces Favourites, was a request show devised to connect those serving with the forces in West Germany and across the Commonwealth with their families back in the UK. But because it was one of the few radio programmes devoted exclusively to playing actual records, as opposed to broadcasting renditions of popular songs played in a studio by one of the BBC's in-house orchestras, it attracted massive audiences from all walks of life, at its peak reaching 26 million. Gene Metcalfe hosted the show from London, with links to a variety of announcers based at BFPO, British Forces Posted Overseas, stations in Germany and farther-flung locations. One of them was her husband, Cliff Mitchellmore, whom she'd met through the programme.